Professor Andy Bridges.
Thank you, Chancellor. Vice-Chancellor, members of University Council, members of University Executives, CQ University staff, honoured guests, graduating students and your friends and families. As has already been said, after 8 fantastic years at CQUni Bundaberg, I've decided with my wife Jane that the time is right for a new adventure. I've worked in 8 universities and I can honestly say that this one is by far my favourite. Further to that, with CQUni now spreading from Cairns down to Melbourne and Adelaide and across to WA, I also know that all of my colleagues will agree with me that Bundaberg is by far the best location of all of those. Seriously, as someone who was first in my family to go to university, it gives me great pride to work for a uni that truly engages with its community to provide routes to university education for many students who might not otherwise be able to access it. Importantly, that education is facilitated by the highest quality staff and leads to educational and research outcomes that are deeply important to the communities we work in. I'm therefore extremely honoured to be given the opportunity to speak to you today on one of the most important days of your life. And also, after attending these ceremonies for 8 years and never getting a chance to say anything, I thought maybe if I said I was leaving, the Chancellor would give me a crack at last. As that cunning plan paid off, I thought I'd better do my best and engage in a bit of preparation. So as a good academic, I thought I'd do some research on the best graduation speeches of all time. I read speeches given by the great and the good, including J.K. Rowling, Steve Jobs, Arnie Schwarzenegger, Tim Minchin, even Barack Obama. After all, I thought, why attempt to come up with original thought if I can adapt what someone else has already done much better than I ever could? There's a word for that. I think it's plagiarism. I have to admit this speech hasn't been through Turnitin. Anyway, I conducted a meta-analysis of these speeches. That's a fancy way of saying I read them and picked out the bits I liked the best. And I identified 4 common themes that flow through nearly all of them. I therefore thought I'd share these themes with you. Of course, this has the great advantage of me not needing to take the blame if you don't agree, or more importantly, if the Chancellor or Vice-Chancellor don't agree with them. I'm also under no illusions about my own importance in the scheme of things, but did want to include a little bit of personal reflection in it. I've therefore taken the opportunity to illustrate these themes with some of my dark and dubious history, including the last 8 years at CQ University. Hopefully you might find a nugget which you can apply to your lives as you begin your post-graduation journey. Theme 1. Don't always play by the rules. Just to be clear, we're not talking laws here. No, we've got David Batt there, good ex-policeman. We have very good relationships with the police services we work with in our communities, and I don't want to upset them. I can see the Newsmail headline now. Outgoing CQ University Deputy Vice-Chancellor encourages new graduates to become lawbreakers. However, it is okay to question accepted norms and ways of doing things. There are some great historical examples of people who changed society by questioning what everyone else was doing. Look at Rosa Parks, who resisted bus segregation in the States. Steve Jobs, Apple CEO, who didn't agree that style and technology couldn't mix. And even Jimi Hendrix, who didn't agree that guitars couldn't be played with your teeth. For my small part, when I arrived in Bundaberg to work at the uni 8 years ago, I didn't agree that you could only study psychology or physiotherapy or occupational therapy or engineering unless you went to Brisbane, and now you don't have to. The message here is to think outside of the square. Always be prepared to question accepted truisms. Look for different ways of doing things that might actually turn out to be better ways of doing things. Theme 2. Don't be obsessed by long-term goals. I'm aware that at key life junctures, such as graduation, there is incredible pressure to plan your life out now, and the decisions you make next week will have an ongoing impact on the rest of your life. I say, take a chill pill. Give yourselves a break. If we took the notion of an unalterable life plan to its extreme, we'd be living in a world populated by astronauts, footy players, and princesses. An interesting society, no doubt, but probably not a terribly functional one. It's a bit of a cliche, but many of the jobs you'll end up doing haven't even been invented yet, and most people will have 12 to 15 jobs during their working lifetime. I started out wanting to be a Royal Marine, then a vet. I've actually had jobs including burger flipper, TV salesperson, barman, pokey machine assembler, road sweeper, garbo, removalist, and the jewel in the crown, a packer in a condom factory. Even when I settled on a clearer career route, I moved from wanting to be a clinical psychologist to a research psychologist to a teacher to eventually selling my soul to management, albeit within an educational environment. I'm not saying plans are bad, but be flexible. Recognise that plans can change and that your choice won't necessarily have the impact you think it's going to have on your future. For my part, I am still fairly certain that when Angus Young inevitably falls out with Axl Rose, I will be the next lead singer of AC/DC. Theme 3. Perfection isn't always possible. It's great to aim for excellence, and we should always try to do the best in whatever we're currently doing. However, you do have to have a bigger picture in the back of your head. Sometimes we need to do what's good enough in order to move on and pursue a broader goal. Very few things in life are perfect, so always aiming for that is ultimately going to lead to disappointment a lot of the time. At this point, I have to admit, along with our Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research, Professor Grant Stanley, to being a bit of a Star Trek fan, a Trekkie. So it was with great sadness that I learnt of the death in 2015 of Leonard Nimoy, the actor who played Spock in the original series. A great quote from him related to perfection was, "Everything's got a crack in it. It's how the light gets in. Live long and prosper." I have this discussion with PhD students. They understandably want their research to be the best it can be. But the unfortunate truth is that there aren't many Nobel Prize winners in this world, and virtually none were awarded it as a result of their PhD research, Marie Curie being a notable exception. It's actually their apprenticeship, the beginning of their research careers. Gilding it too much is just prevarication. They need to get it under their belt so they can continue their research and get paid a salary for doing so. Theme 4, we're nearly there, don't worry, okay? Don't be afraid to fail. People often say you shouldn't be afraid of failure or of making a fool of yourself. I'm taking it a step further by saying you shouldn't worry about messing up badly. Hopefully we all know that you shouldn't not do something because you may not succeed. You won't go anywhere without taking risks. However, we all fail, and it's not always because we've pushed ourselves and we can take some noble solace from it. Sometimes we fail because we've been stupid or careless or just through bad luck. We still need to be able to pick ourselves up from it, learn our lessons, and hopefully get something positive out of the experience. In the UK, when I was at school, you took exams at the end of year 11 and either left to go to work, which most people did, or carried on into years 12 and 13. This was called the sixth form, lower sixth and upper sixth, which makes it sound like I went to school in Dickensian times, and I can promise it wasn't quite that long ago. I was a fairly academic student at year 11 and did well enough in my exams that it was expected I carried on into sixth form, but that's where things started to go wrong. It would be fair to say that I got distracted by extracurricular activity. A British post-punk artist called Ian Dury had a great song around that time called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll. Maybe I should have realised it wasn't intended as a self-help thesis. Anyway, as a result, I crashed and burned and was a way off getting the results I needed to attend university. I left school and started working in an electrical retail shop selling the newfangled CD player and VHS video recorder. It didn't take me very long to realise this really wasn't my dream job for life. Much as I enjoyed demonstrating the clarity of sound of the newfangled CD using the opening bars of Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. Actually, let's just take a minute and remind ourselves of that, shall we? Dire Straits get a lot of flack for being middle of the road, but I still think that's one of the best ever build-ups to a rock song. Anyway, I digress. I decided retail wasn't for me, and I therefore retook my school exams externally and was offered a place at my first choice uni. The lesson continued to resonate, as once I got to uni, I knew I didn't want to repeat the experience. I still had a great time, but ensured that my studies got the attention they deserved. It did help that I was studying a subject I found fascinating. Another sub-theme here, pursue what interests you. How good is that? 2 for the price of 1 in that one. I like uni so much that until now, I've never left. And over the years, I've seen plenty of students who probably hadn't learnt that lesson, crashing and burning. In hindsight, probably a worse time to learn it. The graduates we're celebrating today are, however, much wiser than that, and despite all the ups and downs, have achieved remarkable success through their graduation today. I'm personally very proud of you and of your families and friends for supporting you. I take full responsibility for my failure in senior school. My own less than sensible choices were to blame, but at least I didn't waste the lesson I learnt from it. So, by way of summary, I've taken the essence of speeches made by people far more intelligent than me and have distilled the following advice. Break the rules, don't worry about having goals, perfection's overrated, and embrace failure. That should secure my future references from the Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor.
Thank you, Professor Bridges. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to present a musical performance by Laura Garrick. Miss Garrick is a graduate of CQ University's Bachelor of Music